Hey, welcome to my basement, everybody. Look who I've got in the basement today. Two friends, two parts of the family of Electric Playground. Jose Sanchez is here. Don Fubar himself. Hold for applause. And BEHR SAFI is here. Oh my God, he's got his own signage. That's amazing. And BEHR SAFI is here. And we're going to subtitle this podcast. We're going to figure everything out for the video game industry because that's what we're going to talk about, right? We're going to solve
As
all
usual.
the dilemmas and the problems, just like every
We're the
other
experts,
goddamn podcast you're listening to that knows how to run the business better than the people that are running their business. I thought we should definitely talk about stuff that's happening because obviously the Xbox business unit or business strategy podcast, how lame
BSP
to make a podcast about their business strategy happened this week. That's what we've got to, guys. We've got to the point where they have to have a business strategy to calm the fears of the super fans out there.
Everybody relax. We're going to take care of business in a van down by the river.
It's business time. I just like Flight of the Conchords, man, coming right back. All right, so Xbox went on record. Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and Matt Booty sat with Tina Amini, and they all did a really nice job at hitting all the points. It was very, scripted and well thought out, and expertly marketed too. They didn't divulge anything that they weren't supposed to about games that are coming up or consoles that are coming up. All this tantalizing tidbits that they did drop were pretty cool, though. And they talked about the 34 million subscribers to Game Pass. They talked about...
Well, it's happening. It's freaking out. He started talking about Xbox, and then we lost him. They sensed he was saying things. He said, "What? Don't divulge any secrets, Victor."
It's my cam link. I've used it too much. I think I have to get a new one.
That was Xbox.
But they talked about
that was all green too. Did you see the green, Jose?
Right?
That was
I saw.
I know.
Xbox.
The color scheme was perfect.
Xbox hacked in. No, they talked about the 34 million subscribers. They talked about the fact that they've got 4 games that they've already published that Phil Spencer actually called smaller games, which I thought was a little bit of a misnomer there, but they're coming to other consoles. They're picking up the strategy for that. And they really kind of, beat the drum on the idea that Xbox Play Anywhere was their strategy before, and it continues to be their strategy. Jose, what did you think of the messaging? And did you know what they were going to say? Did you predict all of that? Were you surprised by anything that they had to say?
I mean, nothing. It was the rumors where they're going to be releasing stuff to other consoles, so that wasn't very much a surprise. The fact that they're keeping us waiting, it's like, just tell us it's going to be Sea of Thieves. Tell us it's going to be like Grounded. Give us the games. Like, you don't have to wait 2 months to be like, oh, Halo's coming to PlayStation.
Yeah,
this small game, this small franchise. You want to branch out to other consoles? Halo, yeah. No, I mean, it was just sort of like, hey guys, we're still in this thing. Don't count us out just because all these numbers are coming out that PlayStations are outselling Xboxes every month. And woo! Now you're going to be able to play Xbox games on those PlayStations. So get yourself ready. It's going to be crazy. What are people going to do? Lose their mind? It's just going to be games that are like, they're going to be like, yeah, sorry, it's Call of Duty. It's going to be, these big games that you already expected to be on PlayStation and Madden. Like, oh, great. Like, what? That's different. Yeah, so nothing too surprising. Again, when you don't say anything, everything is speculation, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things that was a little frustrating with the business development podcast. I don't even know what
BDS.
They didn't
BDSP.
really. They didn't really reveal stuff, and so now there is more speculation and there is more, confusion. I think out there a little bit about what the totality of this message is going to mean. Are we going to go deeper into the catalog? BEHR, what did you think? Did they hit all the points that you expected? Did you want more? Were you satisfied with their response?
Yeah, I mean, first impression was that, this did not seem like a celebration. This seemed like they were trying to address all this crazy, Twitter madness. And it was more of a damage control type of podcast. And I'm not really even sure if this was the right format to do it. But I do have to give Microsoft some kudos for even coming out and addressing it. and being transparent, because my friend of mine made a good point yesterday when I was talking to him about this. It's like, would Nintendo and Sony have done the same thing? Would they have really come out in this style of format and been this transparent about their future business endeavors? And I do have to give Microsoft points on that. However, I think what comes up to everyone's mind is right now it's 4 games that are coming to the other consoles, right? And of course, Minecraft has always been shared amongst all the platforms. But what does this mean for the future? Is this just the first step of the inevitable? Is this the first step of what Jose was saying with Halo coming to PlayStation? That's kind of the conversation that this all starts, right? And this is what's kind of coming into our mind is like,
shut the door on that, did they?
They did not.
They did on indie, though. No indie PlayStation. No indie or Starfield for you.
You know those are coming in 2025.
No, Phil said no.
They are coming.
Phil said no.
No, I think you're right, Bear. I think they didn't. It's opened the door to more questions, but that's okay, right? That's part of the fun of this business, right? That doesn't stand still.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think again, I think a lot of people just didn't get a great feeling from what came out of this with, I don't even know if Sarah Bond and Matt Booty were the right people to join Phil Spencer on this. I almost feel like this should have had a bit more of a personal one-on-one type of, it felt very PR-y, and the fact that they were trying to sprinkle in some good things here and there to keep people happy, Diablo 4 coming out to Game Pass on March 28th and little details like that. It just kind of shows that they were trying to keep player bases happy and trying to keep us moving, because again, this did not feel like, such a big celebration. I know new Xbox hardware coming out at the end of the year, apparently being announced at the end of the year. Sorry, it's probably the rumored digital Series X that a lot of people have been talking about, but we don't know. They're already talking about the next generation. The question that comes up to my mind with all of this and why I'm so passionate about this discussion is, what does this really mean for the Xbox brand as a whole? Does this mean that we're just going to see Xbox just really turn into Game Pass or turn into Windows as a live service? I always think, if any of you guys are out there who are retro game collectors, we go back to the PS3 and 360 era, and there was multi-platform games on both those systems, and most of them ran better on the 360. But for whatever reason, the PS3 versions of those games are still much more expensive in the secondhand market, even though Sony doesn't support backwards compatibility or any of that. And that all has to do with brand affinity, right? It has to do with the brand that Sony has created, the following. And I feel like in the last 5-10 years, because Microsoft has not been having those software hits, we got to have the discussion of the fact that Starfield might be what led the kind of the bombing of Starfield. I don't want to say bombing, but the unpleasant numbers, underperforming, right?
Underperforming. Yeah,
it's probably why we're having this conversation in the first place right now, right?
It's a market share conversation. It's a market share conversation. Like they just don't have the numbers on the consoles that the other two have, and they are quick to recognize that that's not going to happen unless they carry through on this strategy of acquiring all of these developers and tying that to Game Pass and date kind of deliveries. And I think they're reconciling that there is a path around this idea of friction and choices that people have to make before they play. And they're very much looking at the Netflix model. I mean, we've been saying this for years. And famously, Reed Hastings on Netflix made the 11th hour decision to not release hardware and said, no, we're going to put our app on every device out there. And that catapulted Netflix to, the stratosphere. And I think Xbox has been using even the brand of Xbox as a way to bring people in to play games, but they're recognizing, as Matt Booty pointed out, that there are super uber brands in gaming like Fortnite and Roblox and many others that exist outside of the confines of a console. And I think about Rock Band. I think about Rock Band all the time in this space, and how cool and inclusive the Rock Band experience was. And what held it back was that you had to tie it to a console and you had to work with the parameters of whatever machine you were on. And if somebody owned a guitar for the Xbox and it didn't work on the PlayStation and you didn't have all the instruments, it was a pain in the ass. And now Epic has brought the harmonics team to bring out the Fortnite Festival using a lot of the mechanics, a lot of the learning, even some of the instruments from the Rock Band days, and it's platform agnostic. That is a case of a game that should have been play anywhere. It was bigger than the consoles. And that's what's happening now with games in general. They're bigger than the machines. They should be able to be played everywhere. The Steam Deck is showing that every freaking day. The Steam Deck is also showing how incredibly valuable the retro world is, not to mention all of these Chinese hardware devices that come preloaded with games and all that stuff. The retro community is incredibly important. And I think the other message that was sprinkled in there, and that's why I tweeted out backwards compatibility the other day, just that, is that Xbox has been a pretty big investor in figuring out ways to bring people this classic software. And I think it's incumbent on them now to double down on that, especially if their idea is to bring everybody to this service rather than this piece of machinery. They need to be able to not only just offer this material through the Xbox, but it needs to be this true preservation. And I hope that that's what they're investing in now. Like, how do you get people to all of this stuff? Yes.
Respect is the word that Phil used. That was, the word respect almost felt like, that they're going to be looking into it. It won't be their primary focus, but it's something that they're going to be, kind of doing to make people happy. Yes. But that was the exact word that Phil used during that. But Vic, we got to talk about the fact that, what big hit has Xbox had in the last, even say 5 years that has been just a commercial success? Because, the other argument that not to play a devil's advocate here, but just, why isn't Spider-Man 2 coming on to the Series X, or why isn't Nintendo doing the same thing as Microsoft here? It's clear that, Microsoft is almost kind of, I don't want to say giving up, but they are almost kind of relinquishing the banner and understanding that, they're not going to be able to move units with the software sales they have. Personally, if this was a hardware battle, which I understand it is not, I actually truly believe that Microsoft and the Xbox team, they have the Infinity Gauntlet right now, and all they have to do is snap, right? They've bought out Activision, they bought out Blizzard, they have Obsidian, Bethesda, Arcane, the list goes on. It's absolutely insane, the talent that they have. Yep. If they wanted to win the hardware battle against Sony, I personally think they have the capability to do that. If you make Call of Duty exclusive on the Xbox platform, that is going to push a lot of hardware units. And it's not going to happen right away. It's going to be a marathon. But I do think that would help the Xbox brand in the long term, where players will be excited and proud to be playing on the Xbox platform once again. Do we all remember the term only on Xbox?
Yeah.
When I feel like when Xbox was the most successful, which was the 360 era, I think that was when they were at their peak and they were beating Sony up until the very end of that generation.
Yep.
The term we heard the most in every E3 conference was only on Xbox. And that, I feel like, created a lot of brand affinity. I know I'm using that word a lot during this conversation, but that did make a lot of the Xbox fan base very proud to be playing on their machine and be proud to be on their ecosystem. And we're losing a bit of that. And I feel like that's something that
we're struggling on PlayStation with that too, though. It's not like PlayStation is releasing the amount of bangers that they did in the PS3 and PS4
You're right.
Generation. They're
but
releasing
10 million units
games.
for Spider-Man 2. 10 million units for Spider-Man 2 is pretty damn impressive for how long that game's been out. Like they're moving, they're moving numbers.
And the news that came out this week about PlayStation is that it's not going to hit its sales numbers and that they're in the latter half of its lifespan, and that they're also looking at releasing day and date on multiple formats. And frankly, Spider-Man is the perfect example. This is a character that Sony also owns in film form, and And they don't want to hold that tethered in to exclusive relationships. If you look, you'll see Spider-Man on Netflix, you'll see Spider-Man on Amazon, and on, you can buy it on Apple, and it's basically available everywhere. And that's how you create this affinity for the properties as opposed to the hardware. And I think Sony is definitely looking at that. They're also talking, there's rumors that they're coming out with some kind of handheld device, and I'll be shocked if it's not also a PC that lets you load in Steam and Epic stuff, as is Xbox thinking about that. There's a lot of lessons that are being learned right now, some of them tied to how expensive it is to make these games, how long we have to wait for these games, how expensive they cost for consumers, and how many different things are vying for people's attention out there. Helldivers 2 is an amazing lesson that Sony is learning right now,
Great game.
So yeah, and I feel like we are, I think there's less incentive for Sony to publish on Xbox because of that low install base. But I also think that games are becoming more than the box that they're played on. I feel like the idea that this material is completely transportable and you can stream it, you can, share it, you can broadcast it. I think we're minutes away from, I think we have this in some capacity already where you can watch streams of games and then press a play now button. And Stadia was, certainly going down that route, and we didn't quite get there with that. But I think we're very close to a lot of explosive growth with games as an artistically, culturally impactful medium that really stretches beyond the boundaries of whatever these machines can get to with install base. And Nintendo is a separate industry. Nintendo isn't in the video game industry. They're in the Nintendo industry.
Yep.
They make so many, first party titles in a year. None of the other companies can keep up with that. They cannot. They don't scale in that direction. They spend 50 times the amount of money probably on the software that they make for their games, or 20 times or whatever. But they're so massive and epic in scale and so state of the art. Nintendo doesn't play that. They say, no, you know what? We're state of our art, and we make our thing, and we know our audience. And they double down on that. And this time with the Switch, it really, really worked. And a part of that
150
equation,
million Switches, 150 million, some crazy number like that, right? But I feel like Nintendo and Sony really understand that software sales will push the hardware. Not that hardware sales are everything, but I want to talk to Jose about this too. We got to be transparent that we are going through a bit of a tough time in the game industry. There's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of projects canceled. It's not a happy time right now. And the conversation needs to be is like what's going to be the next video game boom, and I think the conversation has to go back to kind of being around AI and unfortunately people using AI tools to help with game production costs and reducing the Assassin's Creed team from 300 people to possibly 100 people. This is what we might see in the next 5 years or less to really help more of these titles to come back. Exactly what Vic was talking about with going back to the PS3 era, where Sony was having maybe 3 to 4 hits a year rather than just one a year. So yeah, I'm curious to know what you think about that, Jose.
I mean, it's such a weird time. Like there's going to be a phase in the game industry when it's like these were clearly the AI generation of games. Like we had AI design these games, and it shows. Like it didn't have that human element, that touch that was needed, that flair, that stupidity sometimes that we get from like, who the hell thought this was going to be a good Dave? Dave thought it was going to be a good idea, and he wrote it into the story. Classic Dave. It's but again, it's such a funny thing. Like going back to Xbox releasing their 4 titles, this could be the double-edged sword. Is like, what if they don't release the hits? Like they release some games that people are like, why would I want to play this? Like give me the things that I want from Xbox that I couldn't play before, that I only on Xbox. Give me that experience that I can only have there. That's not like because it's not going to be anything that's like, we're not going to get that Forza I'm not gonna get that Forza release on PlayStation right away because that's like, ooh, you're gonna see Gran Turismo is gonna be like, wait, guys, hold the phone. We're still doing our thing with the cars. Let's let them have that. So I feel like
that's a
it
great
could go
point.
both ways. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be like you're gonna have those companies that have that the rivalry games on each console that are gonna be like, well, we don't really want that on our console just yet. Like let's test the waters with some other things. But then if they underperform, why is Xbox gonna be like, well, we should go ahead and put the Halos and the Forzas and the games that are the only on Xbox like driven experiences on these other consoles, and that could hurt at the end of the day. You know, like it could be not if you release a game and it's like, cool, you got like 100,000 downloads in a year. Damn it! Well, we're not going to test the waters on this anymore. We had to get the team to work the strategy.
You know what, guys? Xbox is a publicly traded company. It has shareholders. It's not going to be these 4 games that prove out that they need to publish on other platforms. It's going to be Call of Duty. It's going to be, you know, how much money did Call of Duty make Microsoft because it was on PlayStation and potentially Nintendo. And then their shareholders are going to say, well, why aren't we doing this all the time? And when you break down the messaging, you know, Matt's talking about these games that track beyond their console and their you know, tentpole experiences, and certainly Call of Duty qualifies as that. You know, like Call of Duty is like it's like Kleenex, you know. So for a lot of people, that is video games, you know, just like Mario is video games for a lot of people. But Halo is the one that is Xbox's, and that is also a brand, especially with the television show out there, that you want on everybody's lips. And it hasn't been able to get on everybody's lips in the way that it used to because of an install base on the physical architecture. And honestly, like I am a huge fan of physical collection and all of these different devices. And I've always been a, you know, agnostic. Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. But the amount of machines that have been collected now in the history of video games is unbelievable. It's so much just physical space. And then each one of them comes with a huge library of physical things as well. And I think Xbox is looking at the, you know, the practicalities of all of this and the opportunities that exist with those practicalities. And they're thinking beyond the box. And that's what's so anachronistic and interesting about this whole brand, this Xbox as a brand, you know, because they're thinking of, you know, diminishing the impact or the importance of the box in a lot of ways. I think PlayStation is going to think similarly. And the first thought I had when the news hit that PlayStation 5 is sort of trailing on the projections and not hitting the sort of the amount of machines that they want to sell, the very first thought I had is like, you know, what would have really, I think, helped propel interest in the PlayStation 5 is if you could take any disc that you have for any generation of PlayStation off of your shelf and pop it into the machine, and it would work and it would be improved. And what that would say to the long time, pardon me?
Polymega it, you know, like throw it in it.
I mean, just for the PlayStation, you talk about brand equity and brand affinity. I mean, how happy would that have made players that have been with this brand forever? Because conceivably, this is the last generation where disk drives really are important, you know? And if the PS5 was the catch-all, if it was that device where you could pop in a PS3 game and it's, you know, the frame rate's boosted or something like that, and it's a give back to the base that's been there the whole way, and also addressing any kind of, you know, quieter periods in a console's lifespan because of these expensive development costs, that would have been a slam dunk, I think, you know, and I think a lot of people would have picked up on that news. It would have spread out there. I think there's lots of people out there that float in and out of games, but they maintain their libraries because they're reading the news of the value of things. And they have very few ways to access that content on current technology unless they get a Polymega, which has been difficult to pick up, or they have to like be like experts to dig in to figure out how to play these things on modern machines or modern televisions, especially if their old hardware has, you know, ceased to work or whatever, you know. And here was an opportunity for Sony much like Xbox has done with its platform, to celebrate its whole history. And I think that would have been incredible. And I think it will also be the most enormous misstep if Switch 2 isn't backwards compatible with the Nintendo Switch.
I mean, for me, like, I have the disc PlayStation 5. I have the Xbox Series X with this. You know how many physical games I have for each of those? Zero. I have zero physical games for my PS5 with the I have this disc slot. Can I throw in one of my old, like, make it the value of, like, you can buy the digital experience, it's the same thing. But if you have the one that has the physical disc component, you should be able to put my old discs in there, because I don't have any of your current physical discs. There's no physical media. I bought the Spider-Man 2,
that seems like such a no-brainer,
edition.
Right?
I bought the Spider-Man 2 collector's. I still haven't played Spider-Man 2, but I bought the collector's edition. It came with a steel case and a code for the game. If you're going to send me Come on, like, if you're going to, honestly, what am I supposed to put in this case? There's no.
And
disc.
honestly,
give me a code.
I'm a proponent of all of it, and I think that there should be consumer choice out there, and collectors should be able to collect. But certainly, these very smart business people at Xbox are looking at the way things are right now and recognizing that more people could come in. And they're looking at Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact and all of these time-sucking free-to-play experiences, and they're thinking, well, we're spending all of this money on these massive games that are way better than these other things that are just ripping off ideas and making them free-to-play and repurposing. There's some good work in all that stuff, but it's not as exciting as the originals that they are ripping off. And they're thinking, well, how do we get people to pay attention to these things? How do we do this right? I trust that that's the thinking at Xbox. And I certainly, Matt and Sarah, I don't think has had as long of a career in the industry, but I think she comes with a great deal of respect. And I totally admire her and her presence and her perspective. But I definitely admire Phil and Matt. I've talked with Matt. Actually, I interviewed him a couple of years ago. He was terrific. He came from Midway. He's got his roots in it. And the thing that I think us on the outside don't always have time to consider is that their game is the industry. What they are passionate about is building the business of games. Their sim is projecting where this medium is going to go, years from now, decades from now, and trying to plan for that. And they focus all of their attention on that. They don't focus, in Phil's case, I think he's also a great consumer of this material, and he likes to boast about that. But their focus, and I've seen this, with executives that really believe in this business, their focus is to shepherd it and to figure it out and to kind of run through these difficult times. And they make mistakes. They don't do everything correct. And I don't know all of the financials on Game Pass for the developers. I don't know if that's a win all the way. I think it's a win for consumers, just like I think the Nintendo subscription is a win for consumers, and I think the PlayStation subscription is a win for consumers, mostly because it's less barriers to play.
Which tier of that PlayStation are we talking?
Which
like
tier?
The top tier,
the middle one. The middle one.
Yeah, I love that you bring up consumers because we have to almost root for Xbox. I mean, I if you put a gun to my head and you said, "Are you Team Blue or are you Team Green?" I've got more PlayStation games on my shelf right now just because Sony brainwashed me with their brand. Yeah, just slightly more. I play my Series X all the time. I think it's an incredible machine. I think Game Pass. I love Xbox, and I'm rooting for Xbox so much. But we, as a player base, we have to really, root for and support Xbox because, as much as we joke around about the console war and all that stuff, having competition in the space, I think, is really important. I think having Xbox be part of this conversation and with Nintendo and PlayStation is a win for all of us. If we let even, when we saw Sony at their worst, which was like probably E3 2006, where they had the famous $599. That was when Sony was
get a second job
at the very top. Yes. Sony was killing it. They were killing the GameCube with the PS2. They were killing the initial Xbox launch, and they were overconfident and they were controlling the space, and they kind of fell flat. And it was a really good time for Nintendo and for Microsoft to shine. So what I'm trying to make, the point I'm trying to make is just in the long term, you know, we really need Xbox as a brand. And I hope that they realize that over there on the Xbox team without really just trying to phase it out and combine it with other things. Because at the end of the day, us gamers, we're going to be the winners, you know, with the more players that are involved in the space.
Yeah, well, you know, what's interesting is like you can see a future where the Xbox becomes a misnomer, right? You can see that Game Pass could supplant the idea of a physical machine that you buy. It is a conduit to that software, though, and I think if they make a portable, which they probably will, it is a way into that world. But I think the marketing and the messaging around who they are as a games company will transform from hardware to software. I think that's an inevitability. But the other thing that is going to be true if they do this multi-platform thing, which is what's precipitated our conversation here, is that every time they publish anywhere else, it is an advertisement for Game Pass. It is an advertisement to not spend on PlayStation, but buy Game Pass. And when they do Call of Duty, that will also be a huge lesson that they will learn on that. Like, what's the conversion based on people walking up to spend $100 here in Canada on the new Call of Duty game, or deciding, no, you know what, I'm going to put that $100 into my subscription with Game Pass, and I'm going to get it on day and date. We're going to see some really interesting statistics, and I think we're going to see, just like we're going to see the influence that the Switch has had across the industry, we're going to see that lesson being learned. We already are in the PC space. I think it's an inevitability that we're going to see it from Sony and Microsoft soon too. But we're also going to see the lessons that Microsoft delivers to the industry through Game Pass and its growth ripple throughout the business as well. You know, like Nintendo may decide that backwards compatibility is a subscription thing, you know, where you can play the classic stuff, but you got to subscribe to it. And
yes,
that could be bad, but it could also be really good if they came out.
People love subscribing to things, you know?
Well,
subscriptions for everything. It's like, let's go. Yeah, sure, I'll pay a couple extra bucks. I don't want to just play 7 games. I want to play them all. I subscribe. It's my money. I'm not going to have the time to physically go in and play every game. But if I want the access to them, it'd be great to have.
Yeah.
You know? That's why you never hear about mass layoffs at Nintendo. But everywhere else seems to be slicing and dicing their teams in half. And you're like, guys, what are we doing here?
Do you think it's subscription based? Do you think that it's people?
I mean, like,
I don't, what is it?
We have like Sony does it, right? With their top tier subscription for PlayStation Plus. You're like, yeah, you have access to like the classic games. So it's a little bit like backwards compatibility, but I feel like it should just be that I still have my first generation PS3. Lets me play those PS2, PS1 games with a little bit of up-res, and it wasn't very difficult back then, guys. People, and then again, going back to when there was like $600 for a PlayStation. Now you got, well, this phone's only $1,200, but you're like, well, that's cheap. It's not $1,500 like it was.
Yeah,
I feel like they have the ability to do it. They can do it. It's just, again, there's
not a lot of money in it, right? At the end of the day,
they have the data.
They totally have the data. Yeah.
It's funny because you say there's not a lot of money in it, but then like how much is Game Pass a year compared to the value of the games you're getting? You know what I mean? Like, did Starfield do hot numbers? I had Starfield downloaded on Game Pass. I don't feel like I paid for it. I have it on my Xbox, but it's like, did I contribute to the fact that the sales numbers weren't as high because I didn't go out and get a physical copy? No, because I don't have any physical copies of anything anymore.
Right.
I love that you brought that up, Jose, because, you know, you think about one thing we got to always remember, too, is like the consumer's way smarter than people think, too, right? Like consumers are extremely smart these days. People are going to be looking at reviews day one. They'll be going to EP. They'll be looking at Vic doing a review on the run to see how Starfield did. And, you know, this is a rough economy right now. People are not going to be, you know, even subscribing to Game Pass or even like purchasing outright games. I think at the end of the day, you know, Microsoft and the entire Xbox team, they have to start delivering on those first-party titles to help the Game Pass brand and to really push those numbers, because I can't think of a single big hit that, you know, the Series X has had, to be honest with you.
Not even Halo Infinite.
Infinite was great, guys. It was amazing.
It was a great game, but you know, this is not 2008. Like, I love Halo. It was a big part of my childhood, but you know, Halo is not the same thing that it used to be. It's not a brand that pushes
No.
a console anymore. You know, we've kind of surpassed the first person shooter era. We need those, you know, extremely good RPGs, those single player experiences. You know, we've talked about this a million times, like where I know Fable's coming, but why hasn't Banjo been revisited? Why hasn't the Conquer series? You know, they own all these incredible IPs.
I know they do.
But just have not been able to
Mech
bring them
Assault.
forward.
Like, look at how good
I was just gonna say
Mech Assault. Yeah.
Like, look at how good Armored Core 6 was. That impossible.
Exactly.
Like, that was one of my favorite games of 2023, and that is the door open for Mech Assault to come back. Yes, I know it's frustrating. You can also point that, you know, that beam of light at Sony and even Nintendo to some degree. It's like you're sitting on stuff that we want. Make new things. Where is a new F-Zero? You know, where is a new Star Fox? And down the list,
99 wasn't bad. Come on, Vic.
It was great. It was amazing. You know, Days Gone 2. Where is that, Sony? You know, there's a ton of things that you can kind of point to, and I think a lot of the answers to that is that development takes time and it takes a lot of money. Look at how long we've been waiting for Metroid Prime 4. But I feel like you know, what's interesting is we're all collectors. Look at our backgrounds. Look at all the stuff that we have, you know, and all of the points of interest that we have. But I feel like, you know, it isn't so much that we're in a bad economy. We're in a rich leisure economy, and we are inundated with so much entertainment choice. We're over entertained, and we have exhaustion by how much choice we have as players and consumers. And, you know, there's just a limitless buffet of things. And I think it's going to be really important for consumers, or for creators, to build with that respect and with that knowledge and an appreciation of time. And I think time is that commodity. It's not the money. It's not the, you know, even if we're spending $1,000 in subscriptions a year, which is probably not out of the realm of possibilities for a lot of us.
$3,000 on glasses.
Right. And when you think about how much joy entertainment brings to a life, like, why do we work so hard? We want to be entertained in our life, you know, through escapism, through experience, through through travel, through the fun that games provide, and movies and comic books and all kind of toy collecting. All this stuff provides us. That's why we work, to go and have these experiences and to live good, fun lives. It's important.
That's a great point, Vic. That's a really, really good point, because I feel like consumers are willing to pay for quality over quantity. And, you know, we have not, like, I feel like price tag almost doesn't matter if people know they're going to be getting a Spider-Man 2-like experience, a Ghost of Tsushima type experience. And it goes back down to what kind of experience like that has the Xbox platform really had, where we were like, everyone needs to go play this game. You know, I can't really name. I loved Halo Infinite. I love the Forza series. Those are consistently good, the Forza games. But I have not
Forza Horizon was in there.
You know, that
Forza Horizon was in
Forza
there.
Horizon is one of the greatest arcade games, for racing.
I think one of the issues
has really pushed the needle.
Yeah, well, I think one of the issues with Xbox is directly comparing to what PlayStation has done. PlayStation has really doubled down on interactive movies. You know, they've really made these experiences that feel like you're going to the cinema to enjoy God of War now, which is a preposterous notion when you reflect on the roots of that franchise and what David Chaffee and Cory Barlog did on the PlayStation 2. It does not feel like they went with the same idea. And all of that you can link back to what Naughty Dog did with Uncharted, and then especially with Last of Us. And Last of Us, I think, is a defining sort of crystallizing moment for PlayStation, where they can bring all of their experience and access to storytellers across all media into the gaming space and balloon up IP like we've never even considered in the video game
you get
space.
12 iterations of 2 games. I have The Last of Us Part 1
because they're so
ultra
freaking
high
expensive.
Definition director's cut edition.
Yes. You guys watch the Grounded doc, right?
Or the first, is that the sixth? It's the 6th Last of Us Part 1 I played.
And what's amazing is that Naughty Dog defined this kind of modality, this kind of thinking on how you make games on the PlayStation 3, where they shipped 4 games. They shipped all 3 Uncharted first ones and Last of Us on one console generation. It's mind-blowing. But that is what typifies the PlayStation experience. those are the most expensive games to make. They are insanely difficult to make, to blend narrative and storytelling, or narrative and gameplay that fluidly and that expertly. It's really difficult, and Microsoft has not been able to match that yet. You know, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Nintendo has just gone off in their own direction, you know. But I don't think that Microsoft's decision had necessarily been bad, because one of the things that they have done is tap into sort of the hardcore gaming consumer, you know, the already in the club fan of games, and given them a lot of choice across AAA, like Grounded, which was a really, really cool game.
Coming soon to PlayStation.
Pardon me?
Coming soon to
PlayStation. Yeah. But they've also opened the door to a lot of independent games, and you know, their ID at Xbox initiative has always been pretty damn cool. But through Game Pass, they give people a lot of access to, you know, and surprises like Pal World and stuff. You know, I think that sort of platform has been really cool for players, people that already know. And Sony has been making games that, and this is, you know, as a TV producer, this is what I was thinking the whole way across, you know, us transitioning from weekly video game TV to daily entertainment news magazine TV, was that Sony was making these things that transcend. You'd look at this material and you put it on TV, and it's like anybody watching that is going to go, holy shit, look at how incredible video games are right now. Microsoft needs to build to that, to kind of really, I think, draw people from outside of the sphere in. But what Microsoft does deliver right now is a lot of stuff in the sphere that will keep a lot of people happy, but it's not at that sort of S tier, you know, holy crap, look at the production qualities of this that Sony has been able to hit, you know?
Yeah. I want a Sly Cooper TV show. I'm tired of asking for the game.
I know, right?
I need an animated series, guys. Let's get it going. You know, Last of Us TV's working. You got your movie, you got your Uncharted movies, you got Twisted Metal killing it. Let's get something in there for the youths. Jack and Daxter TV show. Yeah, I'll take it.
It is. You got to really give. Sorry, you got to get really good kudos right now to the talent scouting over at Nintendo and PlayStation with how well they're doing it. Because I love that you brought out the point of, you know, Sony just releases that one big game a year, which I really think is a very risky model, to be honest. You know, all it takes is for two of them to completely bomb in a row, which, you know, games are hard to make. They're really hard to produce. So the fact that Sony's been able to kind of keep their brand so strong and alive with these massive multi-million-dollar games. But, you know, it's not like Microsoft hasn't been spending money. You know, I'm sure Starfield, we heard that game was first announced, like, I know it was under the Bethesda umbrella, but over a decade ago, I want to say. And that couldn't have been a cheap game. It's a massive, massive game that I know is still being worked on and updated. It's just, there's just something that needs to be figured out with, I think, the teams that are put together and some of the talent scouting to make some of these IPs work. I think they have the talent. They're just maybe not, you know, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together properly, because I feel like it's just been going on too long now where, you know, Microsoft has just been unusing some of these incredible franchises that they're holding on to. So
well, you know, it's not a I mean, look, there've been layoffs at Bungie. There've been layoffs across PlayStation Studios and cutbacks on live service games that were kind of announced and stuff. It's shaky ground, you know. The business is always on ground that's moving. It always is. And the layoffs,
plates, if you will.
Pardon me?
Tectonic plates, if you will.
Tectonic plates.
Welcome to California.
Yeah, and the layoffs are particularly egregious right now because of the amount of people and the scale of the numbers, but also our access to that information is pretty profound as well. I don't think we've always had that, but man, I've been doing this for so long, and I think about Midway and Acclaim and some of these mega multi-million-dollar video game juggernauts, even development studios. Pandemic, yes, you know, tons of them over the history of games that rise really fast and make amazing things, like United Front Games. Like, what an incredible story that development studio is, and then they're gone. And they matter in the moment, but we don't really take the moment to kind of appreciate why this is happening. Why is there This is crazy. I've never.
You're just making such a good point. That was fantastic.
Party.
Preach, Vic. They were like, "You're right."
The gods of Xbox have blessed you, Vic. I don't know what's going on.
That's so nuts.
Phil Spencer just pressed that button. That was perfect.
But what is kind of cool? What is kind of cool though is that out of all three companies are different. You know, like they come at it from different directions and different perspectives and different experiences. They're all learning from each other. They're all cagely, you know, it's like they're like I don't know, three tigers in a cage, and they're all looking at each other, you know, like who's gonna kind of pounce first on stuff. But they, I think, have respect for the directions, because you're right, Bear, like a couple of bombs and shit hits the fan, and all kinds of, you know, layoffs start happening. And look at Embracer. They didn't get the Saudi money, and you know, they're hosed over there. It's crazy. And the other thing too, I just talked about the iPhone, and Apple's sitting there with all of this hardware and an ecosystem now where you can buy Resident Evil 4 and you can play it on everything you own with Apple, which is kind of crazy. Like that hasn't happened before. You know, you haven't been able to buy a AAA thing like that from Apple and be able to play it everywhere. Yeah.
And the fact that Sony has set the bar so high too. Like, how is I personally think it's incredible. A game like Days Gone considered a bomb for Sony. I know maybe didn't push the numbers, but those reviews give it, like, I feel like Days Gone was a really incredible experience. I enjoyed it, and that was considered a big failure for Sony, and that was one of their big releases for that year. So yeah, it's a very scary time for the industry. It's games are getting more and more expensive, more and more people are getting laid off. So we have to do what we can to support and you know, to hope that we have as many players in this as possible. And I think
let's pivot here, because I think we have been talking about differences, and I think we have been talking about the challenges and our concerns. How does it get better? Let's solve everything right now. How does it get better? Foobs, what are some key points that you would like to give to the captains of industry at Sony and Xbox and PlayStation?
I don't know, man.
Nintendo.
I mean, I feel like if the answer was easy enough to solve on this podcast, they would already have that answer. You know, like it's like, is the exclusivity thing a lost art? You know, like now that we have all these companies branching out, you got PS5 or PlayStation games coming to the PC, you got Xbox games coming to these other consoles now. Nintendo's just saying, hey guys, we'll take whatever. We don't really care. We'll take some more games if you want to bring some games over to us. I mean, like, enough of the battling. Let's find like is it going to come down to like the consoles themselves are just going to be apps on things? But you got the Xbox app, has all the stuff that Xbox console has, except you can play it on your PC. You can play it on your Steam Deck. You can play it on your PS handheld thing. Do we just get one? Do they just come together for a handheld? Maybe let's try to put some stuff together on the X Vita, whatever you want to call it. Like,
do you think we should have more exclusives, or do you think we should just get used to not having exclusives?
I mean, it's such a weird balance. Like, I remember when there was like, the only on Xbox experience, like this only exclusive on PlayStation, like, and that was like the cool thing to have. Like, the reason I have this is because I can only play this here. Like, I'm not going to be able to play Mario Kart on my Xbox. And it would be fantastic if I could play Mario Kart on my PS5 against my Forza cars, against my Gran Turismo cars. Is it the answer? Like, do we? I miss when there was those, like, I miss having a back catalog again. Like, I got my year-end update at the end in December. I was like, here's what you played this year. And last year was my least game played year. Granted, because I was working a lot more. But I miss those experiences of like, you didn't get to play it. Like Spider-Man, I'm going to go play Spider-Man finally. Now I have a little bit more time. But I miss having that, like, this was January. There was 2 or 3 games you missed there. February, there's a couple games here. Now it's just like, you missed like 3 games last year. You can go back and play. I missed 3?
You missed a lot more than that, bro.
I know I missed a lot, but I feel like I know that. But I mean, you're always busy. But I missed that time where there was just like, when we were doing reviews on the run, we're reviewing 3, 4, 5 games a week.
I know.
Getting back to those games of like, this was so good, but I only got a couple days to play it, and then I had to move on to the next thing. I feel like there used to be hit after hit after hit. There was a few misses.
But I don't know
Crappeteers.
if it was the Crappeteers. I don't know if it was the exclusivity battle and the sort of console war mentality that was furnishing that much content for us to engage with.
Yeah.
I think that there was more diverse risk in sort of double A experiences across the business and people trying. There was a limited amount of channels to get your game out. The internet wasn't as proliferate. Smartphones and free to play stuff hadn't taken over really in terms of capturing people's attention. But to the point of exclusivity, I think that there is an interesting court case that's happening right now, an ongoing one with Fortnite and Epic and Apple, right, sort of tackling the heart of exclusivity and exclusive kinds of relationships with content creators that Epic is fighting for. And I don't really have a comment on who's right or who's wrong, but there's a court battle right now happening around that. And the other thing around exclusivity and the way that people look at celebrating it. Yeah.
Make those points.
I love it. You're right.
And the other thing that's happening is when you really dig into this idea of exclusivity, like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are so similar in architecture, and the silliness of the closed wall between them is kind of analogous to thinking, well, Sony wouldn't publish a Spider-Man 4K Blu-ray if it could be played of a movie, if it could be played on Xbox. I mean, what's the difference when you really think about it? And why have we got the business to this point where a content maker is determining where? I mean, there certainly you can look at network television and streaming apps and things like that and the licenses that they have and everything. But the other side of it is, why would you want your book to not be on this store shelf?
Printed in different languages.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it goes back to ecosystems a little bit, right? There's people who are, subscribed to Apple Music and never have touched Spotify because they're so integrated in that Apple ecosystem and they want to stay within that family plan.
Yeah.
I feel like if it comes down to me, I think Nintendo has the answer. I understand that they're playing their own game. They're kind of in their own space here, but I think, you look at what Nintendo is doing and they're releasing these 20-hour exclusive, experiences like Super Mario Wonder, and they're releasing multiple games a year that might not all be of crazy large AAA quality, but they're really fun games.
Yeah.
They're really incredible experiences, and they're creating this incredible family to represent the brand. I always think back
or families, which is the other part of it
or
too.
Families.
Yes. Yeah.
But we were just at PAX 2023, which Vic, hosted the musical there. It was an incredible show, but just walking around that, and Nintendo had their own floor there, and just seeing all of the IPs, the Mario, the Smash Brothers, the Kirby, the Pikmin. It was incredible to see this family come together, and you see the fan base is just proud to be a Nintendo owner.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very important to create that family. And that's why I believe heavily in exclusives, because you're I'm saying this word a lot, guys, but the brand affinity, you're creating that brand, people to be proud of owning that brand and being a part of that brand. I think that's extremely important. There's a reason why people go out and they only buy Nike shoes for the rest of their life, right? It's just because they've gotten them wired to not even think twice about what team they're going with.
A shoe is a different discussion point than a piece of entertainment, though. Right?
Some shoes are very entertaining.
They are very entertaining. and honestly, I think that's precisely the kind of thinking that got the business into this console war kind of mentality all the way along. And the thing that I learned about console wars, because Barry, you're too young for being marketed to on the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, but I was all in on the Sega Genesis.
Don't I remember that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your parents were making the buying decision. I personally come from the. I think it's okay to have multi-plat. I love the fact that they're multi-platform, and there's some games. I mean, this was all really thought out well by Microsoft. I feel like games like Hi-Fi Rush, like Grounded, like Sea of Thieves, I think those are actually incredible choices
to
Yes.
put on other platforms. But I am a big believer of having those big hits that represent the brand and the brand name. And
Right.
the moment that Halo does come to other consoles, in my opinion, I feel like the Xbox brand is just something else now. Like we're going full Game Pass, we're going full games for Windows. I don't know what we want to call it, but we've kind of trickled into the other sphere because when we say the word Xbox, we think of the Halos, the Fables,
Right.
maybe the Crimson Skies if you're old school, like and I think that's very important. I think companies like companies like Nintendo have really trickled that down, right? I can't tell you the amount of gamers that I know that
It is
own
amazing.
just the
Yeah, it is amazing that that the Sony and Microsoft haven't like really gone at Nintendo and really imagine if Xbox spent instead of the $69 million for at the Activision Blizzard IP and billion. Did I say million?
You did.
Okay, billion.
Dummy.
Well, imagine if they
That's nothing.
sorry.
That's like it's not even a billion. That's not even
lunch.
1 billion.
Yeah, it's lunch for like 2 days for their whole team now.
Phil Spencer,
yeah. But imagine if they spent that much money on making family-friendly software and like a whole suite of games that cost the same amount of money. Because I would imagine $69 billion in American funds transposed to development expenses at Nintendo is probably enough to fund 15 years of games from Nintendo first party.
But like, imagine you take that money and you buy the ColecoVision library, buy the Vectrex be the owners of those experiences and deliver something for the retro gamers out there. Be like, listen, guys, we bought the entire backlog of original Atari games or whatnot, and now you can just go ahead and we have access to that. It's now on Game Pass, every one of those games. I mean, if you're going to retrofit your console to be able to play these retro games anyway, listen, we spent you know how many old games you can get for $1 billion? You can buy up some of those franchises,
all of them,
some of those entire collections for just one of the $69 billion.
Yeah,
it's just unfathomable to me to think like you buy one company.
Well, they're
the games haven't
Fortnite,
really...
guys. They're thinking like, look what Fortnite just did. The other thing that we haven't talked about, and I am shocked how much I am thinking about Fortnite right now. I went to that Fortnite event in December, and it was amazing. Like the thinking to bring in Rock Band and Lego and Rocket Racing, and thinking about how much we all loved Rocket League, and Steven Raju, I remember, reviewed it. I don't know if you and Ben reviewed it as well, and everybody blown away. And that was an acquisition on Epic's part, but Fortnite is. It's irrefutable. It's just an unstoppable force at this point. You go into the thing and it's like you've got the marketplace and you can play all the user generated material in addition to these really refined experiences using the assets. And like the other day, I actually spent money in Fortnite. I bought all the turtles. I was like, I have my amazing.
Are you?
I know.
Who are you?
I have my
this is
incredible NECAs right back there. I love those, and I thought
I got my Ninja Turtle tattoo right there. You guys can't see it.
I freaking love the turtles. And I thought, I'm against this microtransaction kind of universe that we're in, and I don't play Fortnite that often.
But when you do, which turtle are you?
But I never bought any of the other stuff. I didn't buy the Batmans or the Superman or the Star Wars stuff. It all looked cool to me, but I just thought, okay, I'd hardly play it. But then the Turtles came up, and I'm Michelangelo, and the Turtles came up, and I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like a digital action figure in this thing, and you can play as the Lego Turtle in Lego Fortnite. And they don't even have Lego Turtle sets. They did a different deal with the Turtles for another build a toy line. I don't even know. And you can play as the Turtles on stage in Fortnite Festival, and they can drive in the racing thing. It's like, all right, I'll spend $50 and buy this, which is insane to me, but that's what Xbox is thinking, And now they just did this deal with Disney. What the hell does that mean? What does Epic and Disney mean? Indiana Jones, Star Wars, all the Marvel stuff, all the Disney characters, whatever else they got in the pipeline, They own the Rocketeer. They own so many freaking brands.
We're gonna get Fortnite Land in Disneyland very soon.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
It's good.
I mean,
You know how, I mean, you saw what Nintendo Land, Super
yep,
Nintendo World does at Universal.
yes.
Can you, I mean, you can only
Yeah.
imagine the amount of money that will be printed if Disney's like, what if we did like a
That's
Fortnite?
what Matt Booty was talking about, you know? And I'm certain that they're thinking I'm not a big fan of this Halo TV show that's on Paramount Plus, but it
Hmm.
exists, and it exists outside the confines of Halo as a game. I think a big reason why Halo isn't in the conversation like Destiny is in the conversation is because it's confined to a platform. It's confined to a way of thinking. And I think if you're making a show and you're thinking about toy lines and you're thinking about theme parks and you have to think beyond all of this stuff. And Sony is definitely thinking like that right now too, with the TV
Absolutely.
shows
Yeah.
and the Uncharted movies. And now Nintendo is too, you know? And it
Yeah.
will trickle. Like if Xbox comes out and shatters our understanding of what the history of the video game industry is and what the exclusives relationship is, and you buy this ecosystem and you get this software. If they shatter that and deliver stuff that registers across a whole bunch of different screens, this true Xbox Play Anywhere, and their stock price surges and the engagement is through the roof, and they do all kinds of other ancillary deals, and Sony continues along their track. How is Nintendo and its shareholders going to avoid that forever? You know, how do
Hmm.
we get to a point where Nintendo doesn't go, like we are on mobile already. Maybe we should have some stuff on PC, And I think that's the first. And honestly, like the 10 million for Spider-Man 2 should be 20 million because they've released it on PC on day one. Why not?
Hmm.
You know, how is that eating into its market share? It's and it's it was my game of the year. It's an incredible experience. Spoilers, Foobs. And it, you know that, and it's also one of the most
Ruined.
recognizable characters on planet Earth. Why lock that? Why not tether it? And why not
Yeah.
have it playable in the movie theaters when people go to make Spider-Verse a cultural phenomenon in the summer, becoming one of the biggest animated features of all time and one of the best ever made, But we're still
Yeah. I think the
we're walking down
conversation
this
goes
path.
back to, yeah, I think Sony and Nintendo are a little bit more focused on selling hardware more than Microsoft is. But I think you made a fantastic point, Vic. I don't think AAA titles and these multi-million dollar titles are the future. I think that Sony might learn a lot here from the Helldivers 2 success right now that we're seeing
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
$50, $40 game in the States, doing so well and being a PlayStation. There's probably a smaller team for Helldivers 2 as well. I think that we might need to see more experiences like that kind of start showing up on some of these platforms. Like you said, like some of these,
Yeah.
I don't even, Fortnite was a multi-million dollar idea, but I still always think back, Vic, when we were working together, 2016 of E3, and you
Yeah.
were interviewing, I think it was the creative director of Fortnite, and you were like, what in the world is this game?
Boob
We've heard
shot
about it for
that.
so
Boob
Yes,
shot
shot
that.
that. That's right. Yeah.
It was
And
on the
look at
last
what
day of
that
E3.
franchise turned into.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was totally beat up, the guy that I was talking to. I was tired as hell. Foobs was tired as hell. And we didn't know what the hell. We shot it on my iPhone and had it like tethered into the mic tethered into the thing. And we didn't know what the hell we were getting into. It was fun. Nick Chester was working there. He was the guy that we said hello to. And it's all good people. And
Yeah.
yeah, shot that interview. Didn't have a hope in hell that it was.
Yeah.
It's
Good
like,
luck.
okay,
So
whatever,
shooting and I
Epic.
have to build houses. I don't know. That's what-
And prior to that, guys, like 2 or 3 years earlier, that's what the gist of the interview was, and I'll link it in the in this podcast. But the gist of the interview was, this is very different than what you guys showed me and the other E3 judges like 4 years ago or whatever. Like I saw it so freaking early, and it was weird, and it was kind of spooky, and it was it was kind of like a tower defense shooter. Like it was just a very different thing. And then it ends up becoming this unstoppable juggernaut. It is.
The
It's
battle
beyond the
royale
platform.
mode, that was like an afterthought for the game, right? That was like an addition that they added like literally the last second. It's just the mechanics were so good that the game blew up. So nobody expected Fortnite. I remember like Cliffy B was on Fortnite, I think, from the very early phases, was he not? Like
I believe so. Yeah.
that game was just, it evolved so much as it went on, but that's how some
when
of
that
these live service games go.
totally, and when that Disney news hit, Cliffy tweeted, "I left too soon." And we don't even know what the video game industry is going to be like from all we can predict is Nintendo will double down on the learning and the technology that they've done and deliver a truly beautiful world-class handheld hybrid console, which I am dying to see. I can't, I'm sorry. The Switch is my favorite console. As much as I love what PlayStation has been doing and Xbox has been doing and all of their different permutations, the Switch is still my favorite machine because of its flexibility. And especially for a person like myself that's on the road and has been traveling. I remember the launch year of the Switch. We went to Cannes almost like weeks after it came out to go to MIPCOM and talk to TV people about their work, and Blake and I were on planes, trains, and automobiles with our Switches in awe, playing Zelda, just never losing a step in this stuff. And what amazing lessons that machine taught the industry as well, And I feel somewhat similar. I just reviewed this iPhone, the 15 Pro Max, and I feel that similar kind of sense of wonder that I can go from playing it on my MacBook Pro. Did we get a thumbs up? I'm playing like Death Stranding again, which is amazing to see in context of the Death Stranding 2. Oh, I froze.
You did with a big thumbs up, just right there.
I gotta, hold on, I got to unplug and plug back in.
The gods of Xbox are coming back to get Vic.
Wait, he's talking about Nintendo. Cut him off. Cut him off. Cut him off. Back to the Xbox box.
Yeah, well, it's great. I've just reviewed this iPhone 15 Pro. This is the project that I worked on this week, and it's that similar kind of thing. Playing Death Stranding 1 again on my MacBook Pro, and it looks insane. It just looks so beautiful with the metal upgrades and everything like that, and the resolution of the laptop screen, and then bouncing and playing it again, or picking up and playing it on the iPhone. It's crazy. It's too small. It's squinty. But I think about the idea of, what does the iPad throw into this mix? And then as this Vision Pro keeps iterating, and who knows if it's ever going to be a success, but if it gets down to glasses size, I think that will be pretty damn exciting.
How do you not call it eyes?
Eyes, yeah.
This is my eyes. Eyes.
So, Bear, you would like to see the industry continue to double down on exclusives and take a page from Nintendo's playbook, but deliver more throughout the year. So smaller scale, and maybe AI becomes an equation in that, but more exclusives tied to your platform, and maybe more also from Nintendo, more software that appeals to a broader age group. Because I think a lot of what we see as exclusives on the other machines are all for adults, and I don't know if that's been doing these companies a service.
Yeah, I do, not all AAA titles need to be what represents the brand. I don't think exclusives is the complete answer. I do think it's a smart move having some of these live service games, like I said, like the Sea of Thieves, like the Groundeds. I think those are really smart choices to put into other machines. But I do think that the exclusives are important. I think a brand starts to lose its name when it starts to trickle out on every other platform, even though that might be the future. But I think we just got to see what Nintendo does, because if they're clearly doing something right, 150 million units, they're killing it, and they know what they're doing. And I don't think that they plan on releasing Mario on the Xbox, anytime soon. So
the only thing that changes is if Xbox has like a series of fortnights, of scalable wins that the whole business goes, what? Okay, well, I guess we do it this way now.
And you talked about playing the Switch with Blake, and you still play the Switch all the time, Vic. And
I love it.
I know you have much more. I know you have much more powerful machines. You've got the Steam Deck. I know you had the Asus Ally, ROG Ally.
Yep.
But you still go back to that Switch. And why do you go back on that Switch, Vic? Because you love the games that Nintendo makes. The software is number one. And we can never forget that. The Switch is a dated machine now, but we still all play it because the damn games Nintendo releases are so freaking good. that we can't drop that machine, and we're playing it more than our Steam Decks a lot of the time. So we can never forget that software sells the hardware, and that's what creates that brand and that loyalty that Nintendo has. You know, sometimes I call the Nintendo fan base a cult, because they will literally buy anything that Nintendo, like Nintendo can release a Wii U game like 30 times in a row and everyone gets super excited about it. Because they've created that brand, they've created that following, that love for it. But it's an incredible thing to see, and it's something that I feel like Microsoft, not that they need to try to be Nintendo, but they can learn a thing or two from what these brands are doing, that they're doing.
It is amazing to see Nintendo do that, and to do things like Metroid Prime Remastered, and then to equate the amount of money that Microsoft has been spending, and to think, why aren't they doing more to bring back what they already own? You know, why aren't they doing more, taking that exact methodology and applying it to their own IP that they already own? Why aren't they doing that? It is kind of insane.
We got the Halo Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, but more of that.
I love it too.
You know,
yeah.
Like they could release
that was
Xbox.
That's all I got.
and they could release an original Xbox collection of remasters. You know, they could go back and
think about Rare Replay.
Totally, but it's across across a lot of titles that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, and some of them are already in engine remastered just by backwards compatibility, which I applaud Xbox to do. But Foobs, do you share that sentiment then? The exclusives are super important. You're concerned about what Xbox is doing strategy-wise? Is there another key to this that you think the games industry should be doing, the companies?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Like, I think that, you know, that's what people when they were in the throes of like, this is my console and this is the reason why, they had that you know, they had that title. Sometimes it wasn't the biggest title. Sometimes it was that Summer of Arcade that Xbox used to do way back in the day.
Those were amazing. That should come back.
I get new games every week. I'm getting new little hits, and sometimes you get a Spelunky out of those.
Yeah.
And Chef's Kiss.
And it defines your Twitch channel.
Boobs cannot go with a single episode of the Big Basement without bringing up Spelunky a single time. I thought we were going to finally close out an episode.
Probably the greatest Summer of Arcade release was Spelunky. But no, like having little things like that, I feel like it's such a cool little thing, because PlayStation people weren't getting that Summer of Arcade, those little, you know, those, and that's how people got introduced to a lot of these indie titles that ended up blowing up. And people were like, well, I might not have ever taken a look at that if it didn't get highlighted in this little brief moment of time. Again, they weren't the most AAA titles, but sometimes it was just, that's all you needed to be like, I got this, and this is such a cool little thing. Let me spend some of these gamer coins or whatever the hell Xbox used to call it. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is to figure everything out, but I just want those hitters, man. I'm like, again, they don't have to be AAA, but give me Spelunky 3.
Like, if you want this,
come on, Mossmouth.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. I'm playing Spelunky 2 for a while now, guys.
You gotta hit me up. Just need that Spelunky 3.
I need a little Spelunky 3, guys. Right on my Michelangelo tattoo.
You know, we're talking about how to fix the games industry right now. You know, that perpetual conversation. I think the Vic's Basement in 2008 and 9 would be like, they should slow down. They shouldn't have so many amazing games.
So many big, I only have so much money, guys.
There is this ongoing convo about, you know, how do we fix it? But then I think in every direction we can look around at these unbelievable successes, you know, and how much we have to engage with and how much we have to enjoy. And weird dynamic shifts as well, like thinking that The Last of Us Part 3 might be a show before it's a game. You know, it might be the story. Because
it's the story on TV before you get
right. You know, if they're not ready to go with The Last of Us Part 3 after the second season goes, the third season has to go a year later. And that might, I mean, that's just a totally interesting dynamic. And the game may lift on story and narrative choices from the show and take us in totally different directions. We haven't been in a world like that before. It's a very interesting kind of time for that.
Depends on how George finishes the Game of Thrones books. If we ever get around, it could completely different. I don't know.
Yeah.
It could end completely different.
Well, you know, what's kind of
truth
cool.
Is that the
Go
truth
ahead,
is
Bear.
none of us have the answer, right, Vic?
No.
Is we are getting into this really strange realm of cloud gaming really being the future, and maybe Microsoft is making the right prediction and they're just, moving the step forward before everyone else is. So, we're going to really see how these next few years unfold and what cloud gaming and all this stuff brings us. We might start having just Game Pass apps on our TV and these machines just start disappearing slowly. But that's
what if Game
thought
Pass
that was coming with Sadi?
What if Game Pass was playable? Like you logged into Game Pass and you ran around as a character and you went, I mean, that's the metaverse, but you ran around kind of Fortnite-like and you logged in and you started to play and you started to, or whatever, what if Game Pass was.
Vic, that's called PlayStation Home that came out in 2006. All right. That was
I know all the ideas have
15 years
been
late,
attempted.
20 years late.
I know. But I'm thinking like Fortnite is also another thing that you can look at and go, well, this is how you do it. It's funny, right? You can look at Nintendo and go, well, this is how you do it. You can look at PlayStation and go, well, this is how you do it. And you can look at Xbox and go, well, this is how you do it. And I think that choice is the new console war. The different decisions that they're all taking is the new way. And there's no wrong, like you're going to have tons of choice and tons of fun, whichever direction that you go, but it's different and it's similar. Pardon me?
Yeah. There's a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah. But I think the one commonality is more investment in the preservation of all of this, especially if we're moving into all digital. And I think it's Xbox's, because they are so committed to this Game Pass idea, it's really them that has to take up the lead. And I think you're right, Foobs. Like, go back and acquire some libraries. Get all the TurboGrafx stuff.
Multiple You've got the billions of dollars. Like, you can buy a studio, or you can buy a collection of preservational. That would be such a
get the Dreamcast library. Get the go back and get them all. Right?
Did you imagine? Like, you can already play Genesis games on your Switch. Cool little feature. But if Microsoft went ahead and said, "Listen, we went to Sega. You can acquire them for dirt cheap." Okay, they got a lot of hits they're still making, but
it'll be subscription. It'll be a monthly fee, but as long as they don't disappear, because that's the other fear that everybody has. Like, if you open that door, don't disappear them. You're a $3 trillion company. Ensure that they're going to be there forever.
Right?
Yeah. And just I love that you guys bring that up. That's a really good point that a lot of the industry's having right now is with just digital purchases. They're not even talking about a subscription. When we go into this digital only future, 5, 6, 7 years from now, will I still be able to download this game? We need to have full transparency on what you actually own, because we're seeing the 360 store shut down. I mean, the PS3 store almost shut down. I think the 3DS and Wii U eShop just shut down a year ago. And people had these digital purchases that are lost forever. You can never get that money back, or if you have kids in the future re-experience those games, that's gonna be the inevitable future that we might go into. So
they should be like a rent to own kind of idea. There should be like a rent to own. Like, you've been paying your subscription, and then if a game is going to be taken off, Microsoft should Game Pass say, does? Well, I don't. You should get a discount. Soon, you should get a discount though. Not that it's leaving.
Isn't it a little?
I don't know, but it should, especially if it's going to be delisted, there should be an opportunity to go back to the consumer. You've got 1 month to spend X amount of money to download it, and you'll be able to back it up and store it and be able to play it
attached to this account. Forever. I can see that you made the purchase. I want to play Techno Kitten Adventure on my Xbox Series X. Can't do it. Why not? Why don't I got to plug in my 360? To get my Techno Kitten Adventure.
I want to play Captain America First Avenger on the Series X and to have that frame rate juiced. I want to play Mod Nation Racers on my PS5 and the MotorStorm games, which all suffered from frame rate and loading issues on PS3. They were excellent games. They play beautifully today. Let's do it. Let's stick that stuff on these machines. The Vita library should be on PlayStation 5. the whole Vita library, and it should be a beautiful fit with the Portal, or whatever the next hardware is going to be from Sony. Maybe that's what they're thinking of right now. Anyways,
you don't have that rear touch though. You don't have that rear touch.
I know we didn't solve it, but there's lots to love and there's lots to talk about, and it's a treat to be able to do that with you guys. And I'm going to have you back soon. That sound all right?
It's been a pleasure.
As soon as you let us out of the basement.
We solved the
basement's
industry.
forever.
You're literally sitting right over there. I can see you sitting right over there.
Would that be amazing? Is like we pull back and we're all right beside each other. That would be just 3 parts of it. We do have similar looking backdrops. That would be hilarious. Oh my god.
We were here the whole time.
You guys are the best. I love you both. Happy 2024. We will talk soon. Let's see if we can have a celebration. Come on, Zoom.
Celebration.
Well, I don't know what happens.
No, you didn't say anything good about Xbox. You got to say something good about Xbox for the
It's true with every Xbox thing.
That Phil Spencer is a genius, and I can't wait to see what fireworks he has in store for 2024.
All right, you guys. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting me with all this. I definitely want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below, or leave us a review and let me know if you're listening to this in audio form. Thanks for paying attention to Vic's Basement, supporting the show, and sharing it with your friends and family. We will see you soon, and until then, play forever.